Everything works fine except the up and down freaking menu switch. No freaking way. Are you serious? All right, we're gonna start this video off by addressing a potentially big problem, but probably a little problem. Actually, two problems. First off, this car is smoking a lot now. I took it on the first drive, it ran flawlessly. And then I got it into the garage and fired it up again when it was still warm, like hot from driving around, and it was just billowing white smoke out the back. What I thought was potentially overfilled oil, I actually did drain a little bit out, then fire it back up off camera. Still smoking. We'll have to figure that out. I don't expect it's anything big. Everybody's having this problem with their McLarens right now for some reason. And then secondly, the levers on this steering column don't work at all. You guys remember I put the 12C steering column in here and I knew that the two levers on the left side weren't working. So I went ahead and actually just disassembled both units completely. I went all out and just took everything apart. The clock spring was wired in by a ribbon to the circuit board, but it was able to be popped out. So I went ahead and threw all of the good levers back into the 650S steering column just in case they were wired differently. And I actually found out that they were wired differently. So these are the things I wish I knew going into this. This is the original 650S, the donor part that I swapped into the new unit that had a functioning clock spring. And I wish I knew that you could pop this back off and remove a small circuit board from the clock spring assembly and then just take the clock spring off, because I would have swapped it all into this, which I knew was fully functioning besides the clock spring. Look at all these holes that are filled with solder and all the various connections here. While they do look very similar, you guys can see there's a lot less holes filled in with solder here. So I'm sure there's various connections that this one does not have. The 12C probably does not have the lift function that the 650S has on the stock. So anyway, I'm gonna swap all the components back to the 650S one now. Let's put this all back together and get it back in the car. Okay, it works fine, yay! I could finally check the oil. That was a long time trying to get this thing to work, but go team. I removed maybe 1.5 quarts of oil from this thing, so let's see if we can get the smoke to clear out. It's a lot of smoke. Looks like it's dying down now, hopefully. I don't know why none of the levers in here work. Nothing works in here. I'm confused, dude. It's just smoking from the right side now, it looks like. Left side's doing just fine. Yeah, I have no idea. And then none of the stocks work in here. Turn signals, nothing. I should have been able to check the oil right now, but I can't even do that now. What the heck? Now it's smoking from both sides again. What the freak? But now it's giving me the fault codes from a bad clock spring and none of these levers work. I think the car might be blowing fuses right now. The door module went completely dead one day and now all of these went completely dead. So I think there's probably some fuses being blown. I don't think it's a grounding issue because I put it back together and I don't miss that kind of stuff. There seems to be a ground wire that was just not connected.
So I went ahead and checked all the fuses with this continuity tester here to rule out that being the problem. And while I'm not a professional at this stuff, the best way to learn is really just by jumping in and doing it.
All right, so I checked all the fuses and there was not a single fuse that I could find that was blown. And I reconnected that ground wire in the footwell that seemed to be loose. That actually seemed to help out a lot. The menu stock and all the different stocks work just fine now. As I said before, I'm gonna do another oil change and then I'm gonna fire the car up and see if the stocks and everything work with the car running, because they were working fine and then I started the car up and then they didn't work at all.
So I drained and filled the oil again for the third time, and at this point I'm not too worried about the smoke issue since the car does run fine. So I jump ahead to our next task.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start throwing body panels on. The smoking issue is gonna take care of itself, all right? Like even if the engine was a total dud and I knew it was locked up, right now we're at the point of no return. Whatever is broken, we're gonna just have to fix it. Financially, that's the only thing that makes sense right now. Let's get this body kit thrown on here. I'm doing this mostly because I need to get excited about the project again. It's been sitting like this for like 3 months in this same spot. So let's get some body panels on. On goes the hood first so we can check panel gaps as we're bolting stuff in.
If you guys don't remember, this OEM hood I bought from eBay for $1,500. I was pumped that it came with the McLaren emblem on it, which is like $200 just on its own. But of course, it didn't come with any of the other hardware. The hood latch, luckily I found on eBay after watching for one for about 2 months. And the hood hinges I scavenged from the wrecked hood that came with the car. I also have the hood struts that will be installed later to complete the car when we 3D print the trunk tub as a last step before final reassembly. I guess I can call myself a true bodywork professional now that I've learned riv nuts and have now used shims. I will note that I'm pretty sure that there are a couple little plastic spacers I'm missing on the front parts here, so I'm just replicating how it should be since I probably couldn't find those small plastic OEM spacers even if I wanted to. At this point, the hood didn't seem like it was even close to being right, so I moved on to putting the brackets for the fenders on, which needed modifications to sit correctly since the accident. I also shaved down the passenger side hinge mount since I could tell the hood was sitting too far to the driver's side. And remember, this one that I'm shaving down is the one Lord Kurt welded back on for me, so we didn't know if it was exactly right.
All right, it basically took me half the day, but I finally got the hood mounted up well enough to where I'm satisfied. It's not perfect. I think that both the hood hinges got bent a little bit in the accident, so it's not sitting perfectly, but at least it's centered enough to where if I pop it, it pops just fine and it latches right in place as it should. And I'll be able to tell if the hood is crooked by how the body panels fit up and how much of a gap there is with the hood and the fender, you know, in relation to both sides. Also, it has come time to learn how to use the riv nut tool. I have never used one of these before, but I got the premium one from Harbor Freight. Yeah, so anyway, I'll do a couple test riv nuts first, and then I'll do the official shebang. So let's get to it.
Normally, these fender brackets would have been held on by panel bond, just glued in place from the factory. But since that wasn't an option right now, obviously, I went ahead and threw a riv nut in there to screw it down. And fun fact, I actually now realize that almost all of the fasteners used from factory are actually M5 and M6 riv nuts, the same thing that I'm using. Now we move on to mounting the actual Chinese body kit, and boy howdy, was I in for a 2-week treat. I had no idea how much cutting, drilling, epoxying, sanding I was in for. Overall, obviously I'm very grateful for this experience, but it turned into a classic case of thinking the job should only take a day or two, and then a week later you're only like 50% done after 5 setbacks. Like mounting any other body kit, it required putting it on, pulling it off, sanding, cutting, putting it on, pulling it off. But as far as the kit itself, the bodywork and the surface of it looked great sitting on the car. But there were so many structural differences with each panel, and there were basically no mounting points at all. Most of the passenger side fender mounts actually had little sheets of metal fiberglassed into them that were good for drilling into and strong enough to use a riv nut or self-tapping screws permanently to hold it on. But the other mounting points, they just forgot to put metal in, so I had to literally just make my own mounts for it. So the headlights were both used and damaged. One actually came on the car, if you guys remember, with all 3 mounting tabs broken off, and self-tapper is just holding it onto the car to make it look like it had a headlight on it. Good times. The other one I bought used and lightly damaged as well to save that money. So both required some repairs, but the lenses looked great and both were fully functional as far as I knew. What took the most time mounting the headlights though was the fact that they mount to the radiator shrouds, which in my case are Chinese knockoffs that do the same thing but aren't formed as well as OEM and didn't come with mounting tabs like OEM does, which meant of course fabricating my own. Maybe there was a better way to do this, but this method seemed the most efficient and the most practical to me. I basically just made height adjustable mounting screws using basic hardware, lock nuts, that kind of thing. And it did the job great. So I think that's the solution we'll roll with. Last but not least, the bumper was the same story. A lot of putting it on, pulling it off, shaving, putting it on. But overall, probably the easiest panel to fit up. Nothing really to report here. In the end though, the whole kit just looked awesome. And every hour working on it paid off when I got that first look.
Here we go, first time seeing this thing as an actual car on the ground. Check that out. See if both of them actually even work. Oh! No freaking way, dude. See what happens when I turn the ignition actually on. I think the headlights don't even work on cars unless you do that. No freaking way, dude. That is so sick. See if high beams work on this bad boy. Says it works. Just to remind you guys, I got this kit for $5,000 from China. This was the only feasible option financially for this build that would make sense. And it will look so much cooler than stock when it's all done. Stock 650S doesn't have like some of the more aggressive features that this kit has on it. This is a 675 LT style front bumper, but you guys know body panels ordered from China are always a huge hit or miss. It took a ton of fabricating, but it actually turned out okay so far. This side lines up very well. Panel gaps all look pretty good. This side was definitely a little bit of a different story. Didn't line up great there. And then this didn't line up great there. But a little bit more body work should do the trick on those two things. Generally, it fits up okay, but obviously I had to do a lot of modification and a lot of fabrication just on mounts and brackets and stuff just to get this thing to sit right. But overall, it just looks so good. It looks awesome, it really does. I cannot believe we're looking at a fully assembled McLaren 650S with functioning headlights in front of us. I could literally get this thing registered right now if I wanted to. I just have to get a brake and lamp inspection, a smog done, and go to the DMV. It's really that close, guys. It's really that close. It was quite the journey getting this body kit on. You guys just witnessed. Man, this was one of those classic cases of it should take me a day tops, like it's not that hard to do. And then a week later, you're halfway done with the job. That's basically what this whole thing was. But I do have somebody in the works for bodywork and paint. I'm probably just gonna let him do most of that. I will say the guy who's helping me out with this is cutting me a good deal. He just, you know, he wants to be a part of the project. He likes where it's headed. But I told him it's a very budget job. Like, I will do it myself if I have to, okay? If it's gonna cost more than a few $1,000s of my actual hard cash. And the body shop guy I'm talking to owns a shop 2 miles down the road, actually. He doesn't have any employees as far as I know. It's kind of a one-man jam, but he does specialize in collision repair and paint matching and everything. So it's exactly what we should need for this job. And I told him very clearly, I'm trying to keep this project on a budget. Any more cash put into this thing, it almost makes it not worth it. Like, I might as well have just bought a 650S used. But he had actually hit me up back in the day looking for an e-bike. So there's, you know, valuable stuff I have that he said he's willing to, you know, kind of barter with instead of like hard cash. So I truly appreciate that. So I'll hit him up right now, let him know we're ready for this, ready for the next steps. So anyway, that's it pretty much as far as bodywork and paint goes. I still have to figure out the smoking issue. I'm assuming it's just, you know, gonna clear itself up. Probably overfilled the oil before I did the first drive. We will figure that out actually next video. I was hoping to get it in this one, but this just took me so incredibly long. I want to keep you guys updated. And that's what it looks like with just the DRLs on. So sick, dude. I could not be more excited for this. Just seeing it as it is now with both the headlights working and everything, man, I'm just incredibly blessed. It's been a long time working on this thing. And there's a point in the builds where you kind of just start getting burnt out. But every major progress I make on the project just reminds me how blessed and how grateful I am for this whole opportunity. Just to have a McLaren at all sitting in the garage. And something I'm planning to do like maybe tomorrow before it goes to bodywork and paint is actually pull out the seat belts and the SRS module, send both those off to safety restore to get reset so we can get those back as soon as possible. And then that way I'll be 100% confident that if I wire the airbag in, it won't blow randomly, just because as of right now, I'm not planning to replace this dash airbag or the knee airbags. As long as you're wearing your seatbelt, which I always do 100% of the time, and all my passengers are required to wear seatbelts anyway, it'll be just as safe as it was before. Every other airbag in the interior is 100% operational. So as long as you're wearing your seatbelt, there's really no cause for concern here. And 95% of the time anyway, I'm rolling around solo, just me, and I'm gonna have a brand new steering wheel airbag because that's the only one you know, you have a chance of actually contacting at all, as long as you're wearing your seatbelt, which I always do. I hope you guys are excited about this because we're so close. I can just taste it. I will say something really quick that I did just release a video on the Inja 2.0 about. I hope you guys understand that I'm just a one-man show here. I'm trying to keep production quality like top tier, like a lot of YouTubers who have full production teams doing this kind of stuff. I'm trying to keep my videos at that standard, like as high quality as possible for you guys. But remember, I'm just a DIY enthusiast on this. Like I had to learn how to rebuild every system on a McLaren 650S, do it all myself, but basically 95% of it I did all myself. And I've had to professionally film this thing and I've had to professionally edit this thing. So many late nights just going through 50 hours of footage or something per video over the course of a couple weeks per video, you know? So if you guys wanna jump to that video on the Inja 2.0, I actually do show more of the fitment and kind of more behind the scenes on installing this body kit. That being said, the car looks fantastic and I'm really looking forward to getting this thing painted and seeing it in its fully completed state. It's gonna be incredible. Thanks for watching, guys. That's it for installment number 11. I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for watching.